And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the monastery, the open bar of the internet, the world's greatest shit show, and the place where we, the good brothers and sisters of this most holy of temples, seek enlightenment through the drunkest, craziest, and most batshit ways possible. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me I have a returning good brother to the temple, previously here for Existential Essential, and has made a few run-ins with it within the Valley of the Judge and a few other projects. Creator of Mighty Heroes of Olde, as the one and only Alexander Marc Yanis.
Hey, thank you. Man, what an honor to be here, bro.
Thank you for coming back and braving time zone hell.
Zone hell. I like it. Yeah, man, it's an honor to be here. I also want to make sure it is known that I'm a co-creator of Mighty Heroes of Olde because my pops this time around joined in on the fun with that, man. But yeah, thank you so much, man. This is once again, an honor to be here. You're always awesome. So,
Oh yeah. Now, you and I had kind of talked about this when you had first pitched the whole thing. But was it a case where your old man was the what had started the process, or did you pitch it?
oh yeah, no, my pops came over to me, and he had this awesome idea. He said, what about demigods? And I was like, all right, you don't have to continue with this idea. I'm already in. Um, I'm just a big fan of mythos from any type of legend and any type of part of the world. You could say Wukong, you could say Lu Bu, you could say Achilles. It doesn't matter. I'm a big fan of these mythos, especially when we're talking about demigods and gods. So,
And I do remember having some back and forth with you in an earlier incarnation of the project, and I was already on board. I was basically doing the meme of I'm already on board. You don't have to sell it to me. And part of it is you've probably seen this as well. There's this idea that if you end up having player characters too powerful, then that's suddenly going to result in a bad game, or it's not going to be true to source material, when a lot of fantasy is drawing upon mythology in some form. Just always funny to me.
Yeah. I feel like anytime you're creating something and you have that concern, it is completely up to you how you wiggle your pen and make sure that that's no longer a concern. The cool part about role-playing games as an experience is you can influence this not only through the game system, but also through the narration and the themes of the game. And I think we did a pretty good job of wiping out those concerns that people do have about the power being too much in the game, while still also making you feel like, oh, yeah, I am a demigod, actually.
Yeah.
And we caught a good balance there, I think.
When it comes to that whole thing, there's a question I've always had in the back of my mind: is that kind of power a real problem, or have people talked themselves into it being a problem because of peer pressure, for lack of a better term?
That is a good question. As a matter of fact, I think that I think it is part peer pressure, but I think it's also because many games do not execute it in a way that is friendly toward, with specificity, what we call the oracle, or GM/DM/narrator. I think that sometimes the games don't prepare that person to actually be able to handle that level of power. And once again, we try to not only steer the narrator, the oracle, in the right direction in this game, but we also try to prepare the players to let them know that still there is some sort of boundaries that must be placed by the narrator to respect that, while still being able to play out your power fantasy. And I think once again, because other games just don't do that, there has been fear and trembling and rightfully so when things aren't addressed, especially for newer players. That can be a horrifying thing to have a table filled with literal demigods without proper resources to back them up.
Yeah. And something I counter with is, let's look at, say, Conan. And you compare Conan to a standard barbarian in most fantasy games, and there is no comparison. Conan is this meat grinder of a fighter, but then, and even if I wanted to go one step beyond that, let's consider a lot of the mythologies. Let's look at Hercules. Let's look at Kukule. A lot of these characters have been the inspiration for different character archetypes, and I don't think there's anything don't think there's anything wrong with calling back to that idea of demigods when it's something that is so ingrained in so many mythologies.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
Of these larger than life individuals.
Yeah. I think there's, like you said, nothing wrong with harkening back to that. As a reference material and inspiration, man. Because, like I said, we were really influenced by more than one part of the world in regards to the creation of the game, even though the artwork leans towards medieval fantasy, if you will. And that's mostly because that's what my pops literally pops off, if you will.
Yeah.
My dad pops off with this illustration work, and I was just like, hey, if that's what you're going to be killing it with and you're going to do a great job with, that's the direction we're going from in an art standpoint and a conceptual art, an aesthetic.
Mm-hmm. More specifically, the art that I saw, the art that you had showed me, gave me far more of a vibe of fantasy comics more than anything else. And I wanted to be that level specific because, fantasy is a very, very wide net. Not all fantasy is created equal. But when I look at what I see here, what instantly comes to mind is stuff like ElfQuest, as well as things like the Marvel run of Conan. Not the one that more familiar with. I'm talking the old John Buscema era of Conan, the Savage Sword of Conan, that kind of thing, as well as, to a certain extent, Prince Valiant, if you ever read that strip.
I'm not. I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah. Prince Valiant was one of my earliest exposures to historical fantasy kind of fiction and just the Arthurian cycle in general. That as shameful as it is to admit, one of the other big introductions was King Arthur and the Knights of Justice, which was a Saturday morning cartoon when I was a kid.
Oh, I know that one. Yeah. Nothing shameful about that, man. That was awesome for our time. That was great.
Yeah.
That was a good time.
But
yeah.
Getting to the core mechanics, it is interesting that you went with a 2d6 as the primary resolution. What prompted that? Just going with something simple?
That is such a good question. Yeah, so basically, we wanted to go with something that was easily accessible to people, not just from a system standpoint, but literal accessibility, right? We found that most people have in their homes D6s right at hand, right? Even if you're just a war gamer, not necessarily even a tabletop role player, you more than likely are going to be popping out those D6s, right? And even if you play Monopoly, for crying out loud, that's 2d6, right? So this is a concept that's already ingrained in people because we didn't want the system to get in the way of all the cool options you have within this specific setting. Because we were just like, hey, pop in and go. This is a jump in and play kind of game. And that 2d6 comprehension from all those other things I just mentioned previously, that is automatically going to make you just jump in and have as much fun as possible. That's what we wanted. We just wanted, how can you have immediate fun? That's how you do it. And not to say that there aren't other ways to be able to make games that are simple and that are still to the point and let you jump in, but that's just what we found to fit. And also, here's the second reason why, the average for you succeeding is going to be more frequent because you're utilizing 2 6-sided dice. From a mathematical standpoint, your average number is going to be populating a lot more often than not, meaning that you're going to be succeeding and doing the heroic deed you set out to do more often than not. So those two reasons are the ones we put into play for this.
Yeah, the most common result on 2d6 is a 7.
That's right.
Which has a percentage of 16.6 repeating. And it is funny that we're going with that because that kind of reasoning was the same reasoning given as to why Sword World uses a 2d6 approach with its game. I'd imagine the popularity of things like Traveler and Tunnels and Trolls didn't hurt, but the reason given was in most of Japan, especially rural Japan, D6s were going to be easier to come by.
That's right. Accessibility, man.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we were really preying on here in regards to this game's creation, was that accessibility, that level of just, once again, plug and play kind of idea, right? So you don't have to look for a set of dice of different polyhedral sizes. It's literally just grab the Monopoly board, take out the dice. It's time to play Mighty Heroes of Old. We wanted that kind of feeling for the game.
Yeah. I could say it's the kind of feeling that would be not far removed from any power metal album. Especially stuff like Rhapsody of Fire or Twilight Force.
Right.
Even Keeper of the Seven Keys, the song that was kind of the patient zero for power metal in Germany. It is applicable. I might be a bit biased because I love power metal, even with its cheesiness. That's part of the appeal.
Yeah, you said even with. You mean because of its cheesiness?
Oh yeah.
Well, I love cheesiness, man.
Power metal is not just
things.
cheesy. It is a feta fortress on Mount Mozzarella.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Oh.
It's so bad. You're on a roll today with these dad shows. Oh man.
Yeah. But given that pick up and play design, I'm guessing that's also why you went with a zone-based approach instead of going with hard grids.
That's exactly right. We wanted accessibility here, right? Because sometimes whenever you have a grid-based combat, or even if you're measuring feet, like certain other games, I don't think these are bad approaches at all. As a matter of fact, we're looking forward to other projects incorporating this. But we thought, since this is a gateway into other role-playing games, it's a simple enough game where you can just... We literally had an 8-year-old play at the last convention. So with that in mind, we said, you know what? Let's go back to the roots of theater of the mind. And with being able to actually have 3 zones as your battlefield during combat, this allows you to be able to just come up with whatever you want narratively as your characters are performing their powers and doing their mighty swings that are destroying 10 minions at a time. Like this is going to feed into that, because you are technically considered within one of these 3 zones. And if an enemy is in your zone, that means you can attack them. It's that simple. There's none of this calculating mess in betwixt all of this measurement and all that. It's just, you're there. What is the cool, awesome, demigod-like thing you want to do on your turn? And you tell that oracle, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to obliterate this corruption. Then I'm going to kill all the 100 corruption minions at once. That's what we want you to feel like. There's just, if you can think about it and your character's capable of doing it, that's what we want you to do. Just play the game, for crying out loud, So that's the route we ended up going with. And that's why we went with zones. Just that way you only have 3 little boxes to worry about, and you just do whatever the heck you want. It's your jungle.
Oh yeah. And the other thing that comes to mind, because I've talked about grid combat, and I don't have anything against it, but I've always resisted this idea that that's what one has to do if they're running a game in general and a fantasy game in particular. And having it in there for its own sake ends up creating more problems. That was the point of the football analogy I used in a straight tweet I made a few weeks ago, where not to get too far into it, but I liken the way combat encounters have shifted over the years to the difference between the CFL and the NFL in terms of formations.
Oh, I like that comparison, yeah.
The NFL has very tight formations that heavily favor defense. The CFL and college have very open, very spread out offensive favoring formations, especially offensive gunslinging, so a lot of deep ball and that kind of thing. Neither of these are better than the other, they're just different. And where I bring this into the idea of grid combat is, in early dungeons and early D&D and the like, you had dungeon crawls, which are very tight corridors, not a whole lot of room to maneuver about. As time has gone on, we've seen more and more encounters in either different games or in people's own tables that lean more into the idea of building a set piece.
Yeah.
But when you have with that set piece, and think of it like a full-on set that you'd see for an old Hollywood picture. If you still have that same movement setup that's meant for those more confined areas, it creates a bit of a disconnect, and it also means that certain effects, like say covering your friends, isn't going to get much use, because a lot of people are going to be focused on spreading out so that nobody gets AoE'd to death.
Exactly.
Same thing applies with say raid bosses in dungeons, like in MMOs.
Right.
You only want to be in tight formation when there's some sort of attack you're trying to avoid, and being able to reposition easily is far more important than 6 squares of movement. It's not a case of bad, but how these little changes can have a steamroll effect onto other things.
You're exactly right. And it's also, this is just my opinion, it allows for more cinematic play, right? Because what people don't realize is, especially those who are new to this hobby, right? They're envisioning something in their head, right? So how many times have you introduced someone new to a role-playing game? You're like, you can make anything you want to make. What do you want to be? And they're like, I want to be Gandalf. It's like, okay. I mean, you could have been anything you wanted, but you chose Gandalf. All right, cool. Let's go with Gandalf then, right? And so the interesting part is, that's not a bad thing that they're saying they want to be Gandalf, right? If anything, that's cool, because it's in their mind, they're seeing a movie play out. And sometimes when you start measuring things out and you start moving by grids, like you said, if you have this awesome castle set piece, how are you dividing that up in 5 feet squares? It's not going to happen if you're doing the other methodologies in regards to movement. But however, with these zones, you can just say one of the zones is the castle, right? Like it's as simple as that. And you could say that you're moving however you feel like moving, across the castle, through the castle, inside the castle, and you don't have to worry about that nitty-gritty details that could possibly make your characters feel less heroic, less cinematic. And that, like I said, it's the game really does cater towards that. Now, you might, someone might be listening to this and saying, oh, this sounds like it's only good for new players. Well, no, think about it. That scenario I just played out, who doesn't want to basically be part of the greatest interactive movie of all time, aka role-playing games? That's what it's all about, right? So if you're a veteran player, you're still going to enjoy this, because there's going to be so many options available to you, even within the restricted zones that we have in the game, which we can probably get into at some point later.
To further get into that, you already went with a macro example in the case of Gandalf. Let me go with a micro example and consider Zorro. And this is an example I've used plenty of times in the past. I did it when we were talking on the podcast about respecting martial characters. Consider if somebody really wanted to do Zorro or wanted to do Jack Sparrow, and was putting all that time into thinking about the move and counter move kind of play that you would see in fencing. Economy of motion, proper footwork, knowing when to parry, knowing when to riposte, all of that stuff. Now imagine how demoralizing it would be if all you're doing in actual play is just standing in one spot and doing nothing but basic attack. Because of that grid setup,
which happens very frequently.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, have you ever read a book called Blowing Up the Movies?
Blowing up the what?
Blowing Up the Movies.
No, I haven't.
This was a book by Rob Laws, with the creator of the Feng Shui RPG, which is all about taking various films and saying, okay, how can we lean into this in our TTRPGs? And he brought up a lot of movies. I think one of the ones in particular that was brought up was Hard Boiled, and specifically was bringing up the tea house shootout in that movie where the whole place gets completely trashed. Which, if you haven't seen Hard Boiled, I will always recommend it to people. Read it.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And the point is that this RPGs can be just about anything, so why not lean into cinema?
Right. Yeah, it's definitely influenced the game tables I've been at, even if I'm not the narrator, if you will.
Yeah, and especially when you've got whole generations of people who got into the idea of fantasy gaming through video games, through manga, through film, that is going to lean into that over the top style. Not everybody who's gotten into the hobby now has that simulationist history buff background that some of the early generations did. There's nothing wrong with that style of game, but it's not a one-size-fits-all affair.
Exactly. Like I said, anyone who's listening to this, I do not disregard the entertainment and joy that can come from that kind of game as well. Look to the future. We will have something tactical and gritty like that, So this is not a bash against that. We're just explaining an aspect another aspect that can bring joy to gamers that I think sometimes is belittled or seen as less than from other gamers. Sometimes it's gate kept a little bit, right? Or it's like, oh, you're a narrative player. You enjoy cinematic gameplay. It's like, oh, you're one of them babies. It's like, no, man. It's like, hey, sometimes it's really cool being the character being like the character you imagined, or coming up with your own story in your head, that movie, that flick that you've always wanted to create, but never could possibly have had enough resources to actually have that production quality that would be within a film. Mm-hmm. That can be at your table instead. For how much money you could buy a set of dice, right? Like we're talking about here, 2d6. If you have Monopoly already, you pull that out. You have this book right in front of you. There you go. You just have your own movie right there for forever. That's the crazy part, and it could be different every time, rather than just purchasing one film and watching that over and over. You purchase this one film, and it changes every single time, and it's just. What an experience. And that's what we're honing in on here in regards to Mighty Heroes of Olde. We want you to feel like you are those heroes, if you will. The movie is centered on you. You are the protagonist of this film.
But yeah, I can most certainly get that.
Oh yeah.
And with that in mind, when I was looking at the things like the call-ins, for instance, especially on the character sheet design, I did get a bit of flashback to things like the playbook design that you see in a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse, of course, in the Dark games. Was that an intentional design direction, or is that just a coincidence on my end?
That is actually just a coincidence, although I have played those games. So that is just a coincidence. I guess when you're designing certain things, I'm going to be honest, that restriction of paper space, if you will, that kind of influence and dictates based off of also the kind of themes you want in there and design choices, and making sure that you have everything that's integral in there. And that's actually hilarious that it's that there is something coincidental like that where it's similar. No, that was not by design. Yeah.
Yeah. What I guess
That's
you could file that under what my brother calls convergent creativity.
Yes. Yes. 1000%. Yeah, it's these hero sheets. That's what we call the character sheets. We wanted to make sure, and this is kind of what we do differently than a lot of other role playing games, because once again, we know what we're gunning for with this, right? This is not a game that's kind of just like, we're trying to be everything. No. We know that the people who want to play this game want a power fantasy, and they want to start off as heroes. And so this game does that even with the hero sheets, where it is including all of your powers that your character has and will attain in the future. And all you have to do is color in some bubbles to let you know whether or not you've used the power or not. It's already all there for you. And it's a lot. It's a lot that you start off with. But it's not a lot in its, how do I say this? It's not a lot in regards to complexity. It's a lot in regards to choice. And we wanted to make sure that was something of utmost importance. Yeah. That you are making decisions that actually matter by utilizing your powers. But you're able to understand exactly what it is you're gunning for when you read one of your powers. So that being said, you don't even need, if you have the hero sheets, you kind of don't need the calling sections in the book, with the exception of the lore and the flavor text, because it's all right there on your hero sheets, because your hero sheets are designed for what other people would call your classes, your callings. So you want to be one of these callings, you pick up the associated hero sheet, and everything you need ever for that character is already on there. It's already there. And all you have to do is add in your flavor, add in your lore, add in your character's ancestry that you want, and the way your character looks, and all those things that make your character unique. But your calling, it's set in stone, and you got it right there. Have fun. Yeah. Just be a demigod.
And incidentally, when it comes to the callings, I appreciate that none of them are named in the way that you would expect a typical fantasy set of classes to be named. They are all names that are very evocative of what they are.
Thank you. Yeah, that was one thing my pops definitely said. I remember when we were first creating this, and he was like, well, this calling is kind of like this class and this class and this class combined, but I can't call them all three of these things, and I want to make sure that they sound epic. That was one of his things. Like, I want to make sure that when you choose your calling, you sound like you were called to something greater. And like you said, we were really hoping for evocative, and I'm glad you utilized that word, because that was actually one of the things we wanted to put in people's minds as they were reading out loud these callings names.
As well, and it's also a nice touch to put in the level of difficulty with the callings, because obviously there are always going to be some builds or some archetypes, whatever you want to call it, that are going to have a higher floor than others. But there isn't one that's the system mastery. You don't have that dominance of the system mastery kind of thing, and you also don't have one who has a action pool that's going to eclipse so many others. I've mentioned that as my problem with some casting archetypes, where they have way too much of the game to themselves.
Right. Yeah. We definitely didn't want that. We definitely did not want that. That's actually one thing when we were creating these callings, that was kind of one of the main focal points, was actually, can this calling have their own moments, their scenes to steal from everybody else? And will they allow other people to breathe and have their own scenes to steal as well? That was one of our main goals, is that every game session we wanted to make sure through playtesting that every person at the end of it was like, do you remember when I did that awesome thing? And everyone's like, oh yeah, that was awesome. And then they say, you remember when I did the awesome thing? Yeah, that was all. That's what we were gunning for in the playtest, is that everyone was excited around the table about what their hero did that day, what their demigod did. Because the last thing you want whilst playing one of these games is to feel as though you're not needed, that you are not part of the protagonist team, if you will, that you end up becoming an NPC, the person in the background who might as well not be there. That is one of the last things we wanted you to feel. And that's actually one of the main reasons we were very much so attracted to this demigod thing, where no. Everyone else in this entire world is just strictly mortal. You are what's special. You have the powers granted by your parent celestial gods. You are the ones who can save the day. And I know sometimes some people might have hesitance with that approach, but I think it's because a lot of the time people don't lean into it. They go halfway. We go all the way in with it. No, it's like you are chosen to be the hero. You're what's standing between mortals and the entity's corruption. So, sorry, didn't mean to go on that long rant. I get excited.
That kind of thing is what I count on in this particular show. Now,
cool.
I did want to get into renown and accolades, since those are the main ways that you do any sort of real advancement when it comes to the game, and I believe that when you talked about it with me before, that was your way of reinforcing that you're meant to be this larger-than-life legendary hero.
That's exactly right. Because unlike other games, you're not starting off with the equivalent of a level 1 character. You're kind of starting off almost like your level 10 to 20 based off of your powers that you have, right? And you have 10 of those for each and every one of your heroes. You have 10 that are unique to your callings. So that being said, in progression, we said, well, do we want to make this even more daunting and just make it where it's just a whole lot more powers to keep track of? Or, since you're already the epitome of greatness, what if your goals are to literally become those champions you read about in those stories? What if you literally become the legend itself? You have a legacy. So instead of leveling up and just adding points to your stats and things of that nature, instead you are literally changing the way mortals view you with your renown. You're literally changing the way your parent celestial gods, since you are literally half god, you're changing the way they get to approach you, because the more good deeds you do, the more heroic deeds you do, you get blessed with more and more powers from them, because the gods siphon from goodness into energy, basically. And that energy they pour right back into you so you can stop the evil that's going on, the corruption. So that being said, we wanted you to feel like you start off as like as local heroes that people know about, but immediately upon just seeing you, people already know something's different. There's a charisma and aura about you, and that will gradually turn into where armies will fight by your side. The king will gladly grant their men and their women and others to actually just fight on your behalf and say, whatever cause you are a part of, because of how much we know about you, we entrust you with our forces. We entrust you with everything we have, our artillery, you name it. Go stop evil. That's who you are in this game. You are literally that force. So if that sounds appealing, that is what this game is. You are that hero in this game.
Yeah.
And that's what accolades are all about. The accolades from the gods, the renown, all of that just exemplifies that, and actually has gameplay effects and not just narration. Because one problem sometimes we found in a lot of games that lean strictly to narrative is that you're relying on your narrator to be extraordinarily good at coming up with something. Here we give you some parameters and guidelines and say, hey, look, something along these lines as your your accolades grow. This is what you'll get, something along this line. It's going to look like this when you're reading out. It gets enhanced, and it just gives you a nice template, so that way if you are a veteran narrator, you can expound upon it. But if you're new, you have a basis to go off of.
Yeah, and part of me wants to be the smart ass and say, giving guidance instead of just relying on genre savviness. What a concept. That is because I am very petty. But you're right. Applying guidance, and that is something that I have spoken of many times. It is somewhat of a broken record with me, but I'm going to keep repeating it as long as people keep misconstruing it. Because a thing that I've been gaslit about in some videos has been guidance being my talk on guidance being the equivalent of handholding. It's not handholding. It is, you need to understand the rules before you can break them.
Exactly.
And in order for people to be that kind of legendary hero, they have to know where the line is regarding how legendary is legendary.
Exactly. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you're mentioning this, because we even designed the layout of the book in accordance with that goal in mind. Meaning that majority of the book, I would say about maybe 3/4 of the book or so, is dedicated to rules that are useful for both the players and the Oracle, which is what we call our narrator. That being said, the other quarter is literally just narrator stuff to help them out, whether it's the bestiary that we have the monsters and how to run them, if some guidelines, once again, not telling you have to do it this way, but more along the lines of these are some suggestions to get you started so you can create your own monsters, create your own worlds and what have you, a map layout, how to design your own map, and how to work with the zones since they're abstract in your favor, so that way it's more cinematic and less restrictive. So we have all that, and the book literally turns from blue and gold as the layout for the headers to a dark burgundy and gold once you hit that section for the Oracle, the narrator. Just to let you know, as you're flipping through, this is going to be really useful stuff for you. You might want to stop right here, Oracle, and enjoy the read as you start to grow your mind and become a better narrator. Because that's, anytime I read a good book with a nice guidance section, even though I'm a veteran player who's been playing since I was 9 years old, even with that being the case, I am learning every single time somebody has words of wisdom from their perspective. And I think it's extraordinarily helpful to have that in your game book.
And another thing on that is one of the more significant parts of advancement being divine gifts.
Yes.
And I look at, it would be tempting to say that divine gifts are akin to magic items, but I feel a more apropos comparison is things like the noble phantasms in the Fate universe, or certain magic artifacts that have a very big deal within their story. Think of, say, the Master Sword in The Legend of Zelda.
So whenever your character gets a hold of them, and we actually mentioned like different ways you can introduce these divine gifts, so that way it's not just, and you have a new magic item, good job, or you found it in a treasure chest. It's like, hey, look, Lady of the Lake situation, like coming out of the waters, calling you out to the deep, and maybe even making you go through a certain challenge or trial. These weapons, these armors, these items that you're going to be getting, these divine gifts, they're exactly what you mentioned. These are the Excaliburs of the world. The story is revolved almost around them just as much as your heroes. So when you wield them, you become doubly important, right? You're exponentially more integral to the world because this is not just a +1 magic weapon, right? This is not just a fill-in-the-blank fire blade, right? No. It has lore, it has meaning, and it has extraordinary powers Some might say almost broken powers, purposefully so, because at the end, we actually paid attention and made end game bosses, if you will, that you will need majority of your divine gifts to battle. So just imagine if you had a whole party of demigods, because that's what's going to be happening up against a boss. How powerful is that boss, right? Think of the Avengers versus Thanos kind of situation, right? We wanted you to feel super heroic, that's the level of power that's going to be needed to stop you once you have all these divine gifts.
Yeah. I suppose another example I could use, since I've been reading and studying it quite a bit, is the Summer Sword in the Lone Wolf books. Which was Joe Deaver taking the concept of the Holy Avenger magic item and turning it into essentially a nuke in the form of a sword. That is basically what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is described as the only thing that can outright kill one of the Dark Lords, and
exactly
because of that, it is a full-on delete button, but having it has its own consequences because there's nothing subtle about that thing. I'd also be remiss if I didn't bring up the God of Blades project, which was one of the rare times that a mobile game actually interested me. In that, you had these different swords that were wielded by a man known as the Nameless King, but he was fighting against this existential old foe called the Devouring Dark. Basically, the Void.
Right.
And each of them is this legendary thing that had its own story. You could actually unlock some of them by playing the game in a bookstore or a library, which was a nice touch.
Oh, I like that.
And I will share with you one example. I'm not going to be able to share it on stream, but here's one to kind of get a feel for what this was. A couple of screenshots I took years ago.
Oh, I love this.
Uh,
Arkham?
Yep.
Very cool. Forged in the heart of a 7-year storm, Arkham's skyborn fury was watched over countless battles. Oh man, yeah. Yeah, this is the same kind of vibes, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what we were going for sure.
Oh yeah.
Love it.
Having these sort of things as your, whether it be divine gifts, whether it be accolades or renown, was one thing that your father was trying to avoid being the standard approach of leveling up.
Yeah, once again, we were really trying to stay away from that idea, because if we told you that your character is leveling up, you wouldn't feel as though you were already at the peak as far as divinity and like the blend of divinity and mortality. We wanted you to feel effective immediately, like, no. You are as good as it gets. The only thing that's making you better is if you have divine gifts, because you are literally humanity's last hope, or should I say mortality's last hope. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say humanity, because we do have elves, dwarves, and our own races that we came up with. We call ancestries, known as verdants and things of that nature. But that, and neurons and things like that. But that being said, we wanted you to feel that way. We wanted you to feel as though I am the only thing stopping this evil. It's me. It's not the other guy who could possibly pick up a sword and become a really good swordsman. It's not the awesome lady who's like a really good archer who practiced her whole life. It's like, no matter what they do, they're not us, and that's why we have to protect them, right? And that's what we're gunning for. And that was our way of eliminating that and saying, no, you're not leveling up. You're not leveling up. Because your stats aren't increasing, you're not getting more powerful. You already are there. You have as much as you're going to ever need in regards to your divine power and gifts. So that's kind of one of the main reasons we did that leveling. We really wanted us to stay away from that idea and make you feel. We didn't want you to ever feel anything less than a demigod as you were playing the game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I can certainly get. And on the other end, when it comes to the monster side of things, I did notice that you do have a bit of a tier approach of minions, elites, bosses, and legendary.
Right. Yeah, we wanted to make sure that whenever you fought against minions, they represent tens. So that means that if you come across a minion and you bonk it on the head and you do 8 point of damage, which is how we do damage in this game, we simplified and said, you're wielding a one-handed weapon, you're doing 1 point of damage. You're wielding a two-handed weapon, you're doing 2 points of damage. And some powers actually do more damage than that. But for the most part, you're seeing ones and twos. So that being said, minions, when you fight against them and you bonk them on the head and do 1 point of damage, you just destroyed 10 minions in one fell swoop. So once again, we're leaning into that power fantasy. You're never just fighting against one goblin. It's never that in this game. It's always minimum 10, unless it's a really big creature. Then it's just a big battle, right? So that's the feeling we wanted with this game. So that's why we have that distinction in tiers, to let you know that, all right, there's hordes of these minions that are surrounding you that you can take on, pretty easily, and then we move up slowly until you hit like the raid boss equivalent, right?
Yeah.
Legendaries is what we call them.
Mm-hmm. I did realize that there is one character in Warhammer Fantasy, of all things, that is a perfect fit for this sort of over the top, even though I'd hesitate to call him a hero.
Oh no.
Are you familiar at all with Gotrek and Felix?
Oh, I love that pair. That dude, that's the dwarf and human guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
love him.
The fact that Gotrek is the worst Slayer ever because he's complete shit at dying.
Yeah, he just keeps killing everything.
Not from lack of trying, it's just that anything that goes up against him dies and dies horribly. To the point where Felix calls it nature running its course. And Felix himself is no slouch. I like how Pancreas No Work described it as Gotrek is Goku and Felix is Krillin. Yeah, he's gonna look weak you're gonna look weak compared to Goku, but everybody forgets that Krillin could blow up half a planet if he wanted to.
Yeah, I think everyone forgets that. Krillin's not one to be trifled with.
Yeah, it's I suppose the parallel I could use is with Scalabrini's Scallenge. Anthony Scalabrini was the worst basketball player of his draft class and did a short-lived show called The Scallenge where he challenged just regular Joes to pick up basketball and completely embarrassed them. Like, even if he was at the dirt worst bottom of the NBA, he's still leagues above most people.
Yeah, that's how it is, right? When you're the worst of the best, you're still the best of the worst, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's just how it works. That's hilarious stuff. Yeah, I really like that Felix analogy there, around. That was great.
Yeah. It was to the point that after the end times, happened. Eventually, demons just tried to stay away from him because they knew if they go anywhere near him, they're probably going to end up getting chopped to bits.
Oh yeah,
but
that's definitely the case.
Yeah, and in the same vein, you could also say the Doomslayer could kind of fit into that because he is the demon's equivalent of a slasher villain.
Oh yeah, yep. And we actually have a calling that we kind of were inspired by the Doomslayer when we created them and called the Warborn. So you're on the right path when you say Doomslayer there.
Yeah. The idea being they are more scared of you than the other way around. Because go ahead. Sorry. Because everything that gets in the way tends to die horribly.
Yeah, we definitely, I'm not sure my pops had this idea, but when I was gunning through and trying to come up with how renown works and things of that nature, I was really leaning into, and I know it sounds like it probably doesn't fit, kind of the John Wick approach of
Nope,
like,
that
no,
still
no, no,
fits.
you're the one everyone's afraid of. You're the one, all the bad guys. I mean, not the good, like good guys. If anything, it's the opposite. Like if someone is just a farmer or merchant, whatever, and they're just living life like normal and just raising family, all that stuff, and they're just decent people, they're gonna love you as the heroes. But people who are criminals, we wanted that Batman / John Wick feeling of just like, oh no, 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 they're afraid of you. You are the,
Yeah.
the terror for them. That was our approach with this.
It does amuse me that in chapter 2, when Wick goes to the continental branch in Rome, the guy who manages that, his first question isn't how are you doing or anything like that, but rather, are you here for the Pope? Like that was his priority. Is he here to kill the Pope or something?
That's such a good line. Oh man, that's great. But yeah, that's what we were gunning for, man. We were gunning for that idea of like you are feared by the corruption, the entity, I should say, and its corruption. Because we try to make the entity, by the way, like an amorphous, ominous thing that is not wholly explained, with the exception of that it just spreads. And as long as people do misdeeds, if you will, it spreads further. And it's when people lose hope, it spreads further. But hope, goodness, love, and justice, which is hopefully what your heroes will bring to the table, that is what keeps the corruption at bay. So that being said, yeah, we wanted to make that abundantly clear. You are the John Wicks of this universe. You are the heroes that stand between mortals and the rest of the realm. So
yeah, I can certainly get that. And I've had those kind of characters in several of my settings for quite a while. Like I remember with one setting concept I had, because I was drawing upon Final Fantasy even back then. I had Odin as this wanderer who is looking for the truest fight that he can find. So he'll show up on battlefields, wreck everybody, and then disappear.
Oh, that's so cool.
Because he doesn't care about sides or anything like that. He cares about who's going to give him the best fight. And if he sees a fight going on, he's going to challenge them in it. And most people aren't going to survive that.
Yeah, that seems a little unfair, but really cool.
But when it comes to divine gifts, given what you mentioned about a trial, one thing that instantly comes to mind is Conan's Atlantean sword, which a lot of people just look at as, oh, it's just an ancient sword from Atlantis. Why would that count as a magic item? It's not just that. Consider what's written on the sword. Suffer no guilt, ye who wields this in the name of Crom. Crom, within the Conan universe, is akin to both Odin and Cernunnos. And there's kind of an undercurrent of nobody prays to Crom despite his importance. The idea being he gave humanity the tools to survive, gave humanity the riddle of steel, the gift of steel. And if you are to pray to him, you're probably too weak for his blessings anyways. And nobody wants to get the attention of his devils.
Yeah.
And so obviously something that has his particular blessing is just going to be miles more powerful than any normal steel. Even if it doesn't outright say it, there is kind of that implication.
1,000%. True.
And which is, why Conan in the movie, even though the Conan in the books is not like the one in that movie, why he says, I have no tongue for praying to you. and why his prayer is so backhanded. Like, either help me out or fuck off.
Yeah, that's about right.
But
Yep.
the big reason I keep focusing on these is to show that these sorts of larger than life epics are ingrained in cultures across time.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it was brought up, but this style of epic isn't too far removed from some wuxia or tianxia kind of stories.
Oh yeah. 1000%.
You already mentioned Wukong, which Wukong is not a wuxia story. A lot of people make that mistake. It is a tianxia story.
Mm-hmm.
But since you mentioned that you have other things planned, is one of the things you have planned kind of a sample setting, i.e., this is not in a full setting book, but like a gazetteer of this is what your world could look like?
Yeah, we actually are talking about inside the book. Like we currently have in there is a portion of how to what the default setting looks like in regards to the world. It even has on the outskirts an Atlantis equivalent of just like this kingdom where these this ancestry that you can play as. Basically, their kingdom lies on the outskirts, and it even has a nomadic republic that was kind of forged, and so that this ancestry kind of just walks around. And so it's filled with all these concepts and ideas to give you what you need to start the game off if you don't want to create your own world. So it gives you just enough for that, and all these really cool ideas. But at the same time, we really wanted to give people pieces to work with where they can forge their own, because we really want this to be your epic. When you get this game, we want it to be that no matter what, even if you want to plug and play this into a setting you already had, but you want this power level for your heroes that from other roleplay games, we want you to be able to do that. Just plug in and play with it, you know?
Yeah.
So we wanted that, and so even though it has its own setting, its own world, it has its own little map, and shows you where all the zones are for everything. We really are encouraging people, just have fun with this and make it your own. Make this game your own. No limitations in regards to that. Once again, this is your movie.
Yeah, I can certainly get that. Now, what would you be shooting for as far as a release window? Not a hard date, obviously, but a general ballpark.
So that's a great question. What we're trying to gun for right now is we like to launch both our Kickstarters and our actual release date on big events like conventions. And this is because we want to be able to, once again, I've said this time and time again from other podcasts that I've been a part of with you, I truly believe here at Mobidai that games are an excuse to spread love and fun at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And so that whenever we're releasing something, we're going to try to find a convention or something like that, a big event that we can go to spread that love and fun as much as we possibly can. So we're keeping an eye out on other convention dates to release this because, to be honest, it's ready. It's right there. There's I want to say you can literally, we're going to be shipping the books off within the next couple months after the Kickstarter is done. And we're really hoping everyone could get it before the end of January. So that means when the launch should be within the first half of next year, we're assuming, somewhere around there.
I can certainly get that. And it does appear that the game itself is going to be pretty light in terms of page count. Like I'd have a hard time seeing this going over 100 pages.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think it's only like 90 something pages. Right? It's like 92 pages or something like that. And so once we add the index to the back of it, and then whatever we're even thinking about, possibly, maybe, I don't want to say for sure, but if we add the Kickstarter backers to the back of the book, that might be just like an extra page or so too. So you're exactly right. We're really not expecting this book to be over 100 pages. This is going to be a nice small book, and the real cool part about it is this is a 6x9. So this is a very small book with a short amount of pages that we were able to make everything condensed with. And believe me, it took a while to get it to be that concise. But we worked our tails off, my pops and I. We just made sure, we said, we want to make sure this is something that you don't need anything else for. If you want to play with this book by itself, it is your core rule book. It is your GM's guide, your dungeon master's guide, if you will. All of that should be in here. And we're just really excited about the way it came out, the layout and everything. So looking forward to that. And like I said, first half of next year for sure for the launch date. So get ready for that.
Yeah, I can get that. And with that said, I do want to sincerely thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come all the way to my monastery once again. And anytime you see fit to return, the door is always open. As I often say around here, drinking is not mandatory, but it is encouraged.
Love it, man. Well, thank you so much. Right back at you. Everyone listening, I just want to tell you, stay blessed and stay beautiful.
And of course, a sincere thanks goes out to everyone who took the time out of their schedule to come onto the show and enjoy the madness. And there will be plenty more where that came from, as there always is here, on the open bar of the internet. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra, I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
有心底。